The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the most beautiful place in the known universe. Giant crystals grew from the floor to the ceiling, each one glowing with soft light. Thousands of alien species had gathered here for 10,000 years to discuss peace, trade, and the future of all living things. The hall floated in space, attached to Nexus Prime Station, the heart of galactic civilization. Ambassador Park Jinna stood at the center of this hall, feeling very small. She was a woman of 53 years, with gray streaks in her black hair and tired lines around her eyes. She had spent 20 years fighting for humanity in this place. 20 years of asking, 20 years of begging, 20 years of being told to wait. Above her, the council members sat in their crystal seats. There were beings made of pure light, beautiful and ancient. They had traveled between stars when humans still lived in caves. Their representative glowed bright gold today, which meant he was feeling superior. There were giant insects with hard shells and clicking mouths. They had built the greatest factories in the galaxy. They were tall and thin, with skin like gray stone. They controlled the banks and the money. There were dozens of other species too, all looking down at the small human woman. "The Council has heard humanity's request," announced. His voice was like music, but Jinna had learned to hate that sound. "Once again, we must deny permanent voting rights to the human species." Jinna felt her hands become fists at her sides. "May I ask why?" "Your species is too young," said. "Only 800 years since you left your home planet. They have existed for 9 million years. The for 6 million. You are children playing at being adults." "Children who have died for this council," Jinna said. Her voice was quiet but sharp. "Children who have protected your borders, rescued your ships, and kept the peace in sectors you were too afraid to enter." A representative made a clicking sound that meant laughter. "Humans are good soldiers, strong bodies, simple minds. This is not an insult. It is simply truth. You are useful, but you are not ready to lead." In the observation deck high above the hall, Admiral watched his wife face the council alone. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face that rarely showed emotion. But today, his jaw was tight with anger. Beside him stood Commander, his most trusted officer. "They will refuse again," said softly. "They always do," replied. Below them, Jinna was speaking again. 300 years ago, humanity joined this council. We were promised that if we proved ourselves, we would be given equal status. We have proved ourselves 1,000 times over. When they attacked the outer colonies, who stopped them? Humans. When the plague of shadows spread through space, who found the cure? Human doctors. When there was threatened by the Dark Fleet, who died by the millions to save it? Human soldiers. She paused and looked around the great hall. "We have given you our blood. We have given you our lives. And still you call us children. Still you treat us as servants." Light flickered with annoyance. "Humanity is emotional. This outburst proves our point. A mature species would accept the Council's wisdom and wait." "Wait for what?" Jinna asked. "Another 1,000,000 years, another billion human deaths in your wars." "If necessary, yes." The hall was silent. Every alien eye was on the small human woman at the center of the room. Leaned forward in his seat, his heart beating fast. He knew his wife. He knew that look in her eyes. Jinna reached into her coat and pulled out a document. It was old paper, yellow with age, covered in signatures and seals. The founding charter of humanity's membership in the Galactic Council. Every human child learned about this document in school. It was sacred. "For 300 years we have honored this agreement," Jinna said. "We have done everything asked of us and more. We have been patient. We have been loyal. We have been good." She held the document up so everyone could see it. "But we are done being good." With slow, deliberate movements, Park Jinna tore the charter in half. The sound of ripping paper echoed through the silent hall. Several alien representatives gasped. Light turned red with shock. "What are you doing?" they demanded. "Something we should have done long ago," Jinna replied. She dropped the torn pieces on the floor. "Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately. All human soldiers will return to human space. All human doctors, engineers, teachers, and workers will come home. All human ships will leave your borders. The representative clicked rapidly. You cannot do this. We have treaties, agreements. You have broken every promise you ever made to us, Jinnah said. Now we break ours. She turned to leave, then stopped. She looked back at the council one more time, her eyes moving across every alien face. You have called us children for 300 years. You have used us and dismissed us and laughed at us. But I want you to remember this moment. Remember it when they come for your worlds and there are no human soldiers to stop them. Remember it when plagues spread through your cities and there are no human doctors to help. Remember it when your stations fall apart and there are no human engineers to fix them. Her voice was cold now, cold as the space between stars. You will not see us again until you remember why you needed us. And by then, I wonder if there will be anything left of your precious council to save. Ambassador Park Jinnah walked out of the Great Hall. Behind her, the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in stunned silence. In the observation deck, Admiral stood up. His face showed nothing, but inside his chest, something that had been tight for 20 years finally relaxed. Send the order to all human forces, he said to Commander. We're going home. The universe was about to learn a hard lesson about taking humanity for granted. 6 months after the withdrawal, Captain Lee sat in the command chair of the patrol ship Dawn Chaser. Through the viewport, she could see the endless black of Sector 7, dotted with distant stars. This had been her home for 15 years. She knew every asteroid field, every trade route, every dangerous corner of this space. Now she was leaving it forever. Captain, her communications officer said, we are receiving a distress call. Closed her eyes for a moment. Source. Mining station on the 4th moon of. They say they are under attack by raiders. 50,000 workers, mostly civilians. The bridge went quiet. Every crew member knew what this meant. There were monsters. They did not take prisoners. They did not show mercy. For 200 years, human patrols had kept them away from civilian targets, but now there were no more human patrols. How far? Asked. 4 hours at maximum speed. We could reach them in time. Opened her eyes and looked at her crew. They were young, most of them. Good people who had joined the fleet to protect others. She could see the conflict on their faces. They wanted to help. Every part of their training told them to help. Set course for Earth, said. Captain. I said set course for Earth. Her voice was hard. Those are our orders. We do not engage. We do not respond to distress calls. We go home. The navigation officer's hands shook as he entered the coordinates. The Dawn Chaser turned away from Sector 7 and began its long journey back to human space. Behind them, 50,000 workers waited for help that would never come. On the medical station Helix 9, Doctor was packing her research files when the delegation arrived. There were 5 of them, their hard shells clicking nervously as they entered her laboratory. Doctor, the lead said, we must speak with you. Did not stop packing. I am leaving in 3 hours. Whatever you need, ask quickly. The sickness, the said. It has spread to 12 hive worlds now. Millions are infected. Our own doctors cannot find a cure. I am sorry to hear that. You are not sorry. This voice was bitter. You are glad. You humans are glad to see us suffer. Finally looked up. She was a small woman with gentle eyes, the kind of person who had become a doctor because she could not stand to see any living thing in pain. But those gentle eyes were hard now. 3 years ago, she said, I presented a paper on cross-species viral mutations. I warned that a plague like this could happen. Do you remember what your representative said? There was silent. He said that human medicine was primitive chemistry. He said that biology was too advanced for human doctors to understand. He said I should go back to cutting open dead animals and leave real science to superior species. She closed her final case and picked it up. I am not glad to see you suffer. I became a doctor to end suffering, but I am no longer your doctor. I am going home to help my own people. Please, the said. The word sounded strange coming from a species that had never begged for anything. Our children are dying. Paused at the door. For a long moment she stood there, her back to the aliens. Your children are dying, she said softly, because your leaders thought they were too good to listen to a human. I hope they remember that when they watch the funerals. She walked out. Behind her, the delegation stood in the empty laboratory, alone with their dying worlds. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out 1,000 times. Human engineers left space stations with half-finished repairs. Human teachers abandoned academies full of confused students. Human peacekeepers from borders they had held for generations. The great bankers of the galaxy discovered that most of their financial systems had been designed by human programmers. Without human maintenance, the systems began to fail. Money disappeared. Records were lost. The galactic economy started to crack. They found that their beautiful crystal cities required human engineers to stay standing. Nobody else understood the complex mathematics that kept the structures stable. Buildings began to fall. The plague spread faster than anyone expected. Their great factories went silent as workers died by the millions. And in the darkness of the outer sectors, they noticed that the humans were gone. They had always feared human soldiers. Humans were strange creatures who fought with terrible fury and never surrendered. They had learned to avoid any space protected by human ships. But now those ships were gone. Now there was nothing between thee and the fat, weak worlds of the Galactic Council. The raids began slowly. One mining station here, one colony there, but each week the attacks grew bolder. Each month more worlds fell. On Nexus Prime Station, they watched the reports come in. His light had grown dim over the past months. The golden glow of superiority was gone, replaced by a sickly yellow fear. Send another message to Earth, he ordered. We have sent 47 messages, his assistant said. They do not respond. Then send 48. But Earth remained silent. The humans had closed their borders. No ship could enter human space. No message received any reply. The Great Galactic Council, rulers of 1,000 worlds, masters of ancient wisdom, found themselves alone in a universe that was suddenly dark and dangerous. They had thought humans were simple soldiers, useful but unimportant. They were learning how wrong they had been. In the emptiness of Sector 7, the wreckage of a mining station floated in the void. 50,000 lives ended in fire and blood, the first of many. The silence of humanity was louder than any scream. 2 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. In that time, the universe had changed in ways nobody could have imagined. President Minu stood at the window of his office in New Seoul, the capital city of Earth. The city spread out below him, beautiful and peaceful. Children played in parks. Families walked along clean streets. The sky was blue and clear. It was hard to believe that beyond human borders, the galaxy was burning. The numbers are worse today, Commander said. She stood behind him holding a data pad. 23 million refugees are now gathered at our border stations. They come from 18 different species, and others. Minu did not turn from the window. How many have we let in? None as ordered. Good. Was quiet for a moment. Sir, there are children among them, families, people who never did anything wrong to humanity. They simply want to survive. I know. Minu finally turned to face her. He was an old man now with white hair and deep wrinkles. The weight of leading humanity through this crisis had aged him badly. I know who is out there. I know that innocent people are suffering, but if we open our borders now, we teach the galaxy nothing. And if we wait too long, there will be no one left to teach." Minyu smiled sadly. "Do you think I am cruel, Commander?" Chose her words carefully. "I think you are doing what you believe is right. I am not sure I agree." "Good. A leader who is never questioned becomes a tyrant. Keep questioning me." On the outer colony of Haven's Rest, Engineer worked in a shipyard that should not exist. For 300 years, the Galactic Council had placed strict limits on human technology. Human ships could only be so fast. Human weapons could only be so powerful. These limits were supposed to be for the safety of the galaxy. In truth, they were meant to keep humanity weak. But now there was no council to enforce those limits. Walked through his shipyard with his chief designer, a young woman named. Around them, hundreds of workers built ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "The new engine design is ready," said. "We have tested it 40 times. It works perfectly." "How fast?" asked. 3 times faster than any council ship. We can cross the galaxy in days instead of weeks." Stopped and looked at the nearest ship. It was sleek and black, shaped like a blade, beautiful and deadly. "For 300 years we held ourselves back," he said. "We followed their rules. We made our ships slow and our weapons weak because they told us to. Do you know why we did that?" "Because we wanted to be good members of the council," said. "Because we were afraid," shook his head. "We were afraid that if we showed our true strength they would fear us. We thought that if we were gentle enough, patient enough, quiet enough, they would eventually accept us." He laughed bitterly. "We were fools. And now we show them what humanity can really do." In a small house on the coast of Korea, an old woman named Oh sat at her desk and wrote. She had been a professor once, a scholar of alien cultures and galactic history. Now she was retired, but she still had something to say. Her essay would become the most famous document of the human withdrawal. It was simple and short, written in plain language that anyone could understand. She called it "The Purpose of Our Silence." She wrote about humanity's history with the Council. She wrote about the insults and the dismissals, the broken promises and the quiet hatred. She wrote about the young soldiers who had died protecting ungrateful aliens, and the brilliant scientists whose work was stolen and credited to others. But mostly, she wrote about mercy. "Some say we left to punish the galaxy," she wrote. "This is wrong. Punishment is the action of an angry child. We are not angry children. We left to teach. The galaxy needed to learn what we truly gave them. They could not learn this lesson while we were there. A student cannot appreciate the teacher while the teacher stands before them every day. Now they are learning. They are learning that human soldiers were not simple brutes, but skilled warriors who chose to protect the weak. They are learning that human doctors were not primitive chemists, but healers who cured diseases no one else could cure. They are learning that human engineers were not useful servants, but brilliant builders who kept civilization running. The question now is not whether we should return. Of course we should. The question is what kind of return do we want? Do we return as conquerors, full of anger and pride? Or do we return as who we truly are, a species that believes mercy is the greatest strength? I know which answer I prefer. I hope humanity agrees with me." The essay spread across human space like fire. People read it and argued about it. Some agreed. Some were angry, but everyone talked about it. In his office, President Minyu read the essay 3 times. Then he called Commander. "Start preparing the fleet," he said. "Not for war, for rescue. The refugees at the border. Not yet, but soon." He set down the essay and looked out the window again. "We will not let them die, but we will not let them forget either. When we return, it will be on our terms." Outside human space, they had conquered 18 star systems. The plague had killed 3 billion. The civilization was crumbling. The Galactic Council met in emergency sessions every day, but they had no soldiers, no solutions, no hope. They sent message after message to Earth. Earth did not reply. But in the shipyards of Haven's Rest, 3,000 warships were almost ready. And in the hearts of humans everywhere, a decision was being made. The silence would not last forever. 4 years after humanity left, the Galactic Council chamber no longer existed. They had destroyed Nexus Prime Station in a single terrible night. Millions had died. The crystal seats where ancient species once sat in judgment were now floating debris in the cold void of space. The survived. He was not sure if this was lucky or unlucky. He stood now in the cargo hold of a refugee ship, surrounded by the last survivors of the council leadership. Once, he had glowed with golden light. Now his light was pale and weak, barely enough to see by. "Send the message again," he ordered. A young worked the communications panel with trembling claws. "We have sent 912 messages to Earth. They have not responded to any of them." "Send it again." A elder said, "It is hopeless. The humans will not come. They have abandoned us. We deserve it." Turned on him, his light flashing red with anger. "Do not say that. We are the Galactic Council. We have ruled the stars for 10,000 years. We cannot simply give up." "The Council is dead," they said quietly. "Look around you. This cargo hold is all that remains of our power. 100 survivors on a broken ship, running from enemies we cannot fight. The humans were right about us. We were arrogant fools." Wanted to argue. He wanted to say that the council had been right, that humans really were too young and emotional and dangerous to be trusted with power. But he could not say those words anymore. He had seen too much. He had lost too much. He had watched human soldiers die to protect worlds, and he had called them primitives. He had seen human doctors cure diseases that baffled scientists, and he had called them chemists. He had used human engineers to build the greatest stations in the galaxy, and he had never once said thank you. "Perhaps," said slowly, "perhaps we were wrong." On Earth, Admiral stood in the war room with his daughter, Lieutenant. She was 26 now, a young officer who had never known a time when humans served the Council. She had grown up during the withdrawal, trained in the new shipyards, learned to fly the new ships. "The message came through," said. "The Council survivors are trapped near what used to be Nexus Prime. They have them surrounded. They will be dead within days." Looked at the tactical display. "Our fleet is ready. We could reach them in 12 hours. "I know." "Then why are we waiting?" Was quiet for a long moment. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, his wife was preparing a speech for when humans returned to galactic space. Ambassador Park Jinnah, the woman who had torn the charter in half, would be the voice of humanity once again. "Your mother asked me the same question," he said. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I was not sure we should go at all." Stared at her father. "What? Those people will die." "Yes, people who called us primitives, people who laughed at us, people who used our blood to protect their empires and then refused to let us sit at their table." His voice was hard. "Why should we save them?" "Because it is right." "Is it? They would not have saved us. When Earth faced the Dark Fleet, we begged the Council for help. Do you know what they said? They said human problems were not Council problems. They let millions of us die while they watched from their crystal seats." Moved to stand beside her father. She was tall like him with her mother's fierce eyes. "I know the history. I know what they did to us. But father, if we let them die when we could save them, what does that make us?" "It makes us equal. It makes us fair. They showed us no mercy. Why should we show them any?" "Because mercy is not about fairness." His voice was soft but strong. "Mercy is about being better than our pain. If we only help people who deserve it, we are not really helping anyone. We are just keeping score." Looked at his daughter for a long time. He remembered holding her as a baby, promising to protect her from all the cruelty of the universe. He had not been able to keep that promise. The universe was cruel, and she had learned its lessons well. But she had learned a different lesson than he expected. "You sound like your mother," he said finally. Is that bad? No, he smiled, the first real smile in a long time. It is very good. He turned back to the tactical display and pressed the fleet-wide communication button. His voice would reach every human ship, every captain, every soldier. This is Admiral. I am ordering the fleet to prepare for immediate deployment. Our mission is rescue, not revenge. The galaxy called us primitives, but we will show them what a primitive species can do. We will show them that strength is not about power. It is about what you choose to do with power. He paused and looked at his daughter. She nodded. We are going to save the people who tried to destroy us, not because they deserve it, because we do, because humanity is better than hatred, because mercy is our greatest weapon and we are about to use it. The fleet began to move. 3,000 ships, faster and more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen, turned toward the darkness where the Council's survivors waited to die. Humanity was coming home, had accepted death. In his long life of 9,000 years, he had never imagined it would end like this. Trapped in a broken ship, surrounded by enemies, waiting for the final attack. The fleet filled the hundreds of warships arranged in a perfect circle around the last survivors of the Galactic Council. The commander had sent one message: surrender and we will make your deaths quick. Nobody had surrendered, not because they were brave, but because they knew the lie. There would be no quick deaths. There would only be pain and terror and the end of everything. How long? A young asked. She was barely 500 years old, still a child by their standards. Minutes, said, perhaps less. He tried to think of comforting words. He was old and wise. He should know what to say in the face of death. But all he could think about was the human ambassador, Park Jinnah, standing in the council chamber 4 years ago. He remembered the look in her eyes when she tore the charter. Not anger, not hatred, something worse. Disappointment. Humanity had expected better from the galaxy, and the galaxy had failed them. I am sorry, whispered. He was not sure who he was talking to. The dead, the dying, the humans who would never hear his apology. Then the sky tore open. It happened so fast that nobody understood at first. One moment, there was empty space behind the fleet. The next moment, there were lights. Thousands of lights. Ships appearing from nowhere, emerging from a faster-than-light travel system that should not exist. The commander screamed in confusion. His sensors could not process what they were seeing. 3,000 warships, sleek and black and deadly, arranged in perfect formation. And at the front of the formation, a flagship larger than any vessel in galactic history. Its name was written on the hull in letters of fire, New Dawn. On the bridge of the New Dawn, Admiral stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His daughter was at the weapons station. His wife Jinnah stood beside him, wearing the formal robes of a human ambassador. Open a channel, said. All frequencies, I want everyone to hear this. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, Admiral. His voice carried across the void, reaching every ship, every council survivor, every listening station in the galaxy. This is Admiral of the United Human Fleet. To the forces, you have 5 minutes to withdraw from this sector. If you remain, you will be destroyed. There will be no second warning. The commander laughed. His voice came back harsh and cruel. Humans, you ran away 4 years ago. You hid in your little corner of the galaxy while we conquered the stars. Why should we fear you now? Because 4 years ago, we were following the Council's rules. We made our ships slow so we would not frighten you. We made our weapons weak so you would not feel threatened. We held ourselves back because we wanted to be good members of galactic society. Smiled coldly. We are not holding back anymore. The commander hesitated. He looked at the 3,000 human ships. He looked at the flagship that dwarfed his entire fleet. He remembered the stories about human soldiers, how they never retreated, how they fought with fury that seemed impossible, how they had defeated the so many times in the past. You are bluffing, he said, but his voice was not sure. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. On the refugee ship, watched the standoff with growing wonder. Beside him, the young clutched his arm. Are they really here to save us? She whispered. I do not know, admitted. We gave them no reason to save us. We treated them like servants. We ignored their sacrifices. We laughed at their pain. Then why would they come? Thought about everything he had learned in his 9,000 years of life. He thought about power and politics, about war and peace, about all the complicated games that species played with each other across the endless centuries. None of it explained this. Perhaps, he said slowly, because they are better than us. The 5 minutes ended. They had not moved. All ships, Admiral ordered, fire at will. The battle lasted 6 hours, but the outcome was decided in the first 6 minutes. Human weapons tore through shields like paper. Human ships danced around enemy fire with impossible speed and grace. They had never faced anything like this. They had grown fat and lazy, conquering weak worlds that had no one to protect them. They had forgotten what it meant to fight humans. When it was over, the fleet was broken. Hundreds of ships destroyed or captured. The rest fled into the darkness, running from the species they had thought was gone forever. The new dawn moved slowly toward the refugee ship. A shuttle launched from its bay, carrying Ambassador Park Jinnah to meet the survivors. Met her at the airlock. He was alone. The other council members were too afraid or too proud to face her, but had learned something in the past 4 years. He had learned that pride was worthless when you had nothing left. Ambassador, he said, his voice was quiet, you came. Jinnah looked at him. She was older now, with more gray in her hair and more lines on her face, but her eyes were the same, still fierce, still burning. We came, she said. Why? Because someone had to. Because letting you die would not undo the past. It would only make the future worse. Bowed his head. In all his 9,000 years, he had never bowed to anyone. We were wrong about humanity. I was wrong. I am sorry. Jinnah was silent for a long moment. Then she reached out and lifted his chin, forcing him to look at her. Sorry is a start, she said. But it is only a start. The galaxy has to change, really change. No more council of ancient species looking down on everyone else. No more treating younger races like children. We build something new together as equals, or we go our separate ways. What do you want from us? I want you to remember this day. I want you to remember that humanity came back not because you deserved it, but because mercy is who we are. And I want you to spend the rest of your very long life making sure the galaxy never forgets that lesson. Light began to glow again. Faintly at first, then stronger. For the first time in years, it was not the gold of arrogance or the red of anger. It was something new, something humble. I will remember, he promised. We all will. 1 year later, the new Galactic Assembly met for the first time. It was held on Earth, in a great hall built by human architects and alien engineers working together. The crystal seats were gone. In their place were simple chairs, all the same height, arranged in a circle. Ambassador Park Jinnah did not ask for a seat at the head of the table. There was no head. There was no hierarchy. Just species sitting together trying to build a better future. This will not be easy, Jinnah said in her opening speech. We have thousands of years of mistakes to fix. We have trust to rebuild and wounds to heal. But we are here, all of us. And that is a start. In the observation deck, Commander watched the ceremony with Lieutenant beside her. They had become friends over the past year, the old soldier and the young officer, both carrying the weight of humanity's choices. Do you think it will last? Asked. Smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. Probably not. Someone will get greedy. Someone will forget the lessons. The old hatreds will come back. That is depressing. No, it is just history. Nothing lasts forever, but that is okay. She put her hand on his shoulder. Because we will be here. Whenever they forget, we will remind them. Whenever they fall, we will help them stand. That is what humanity does. That is who we are. Below them, the Galactic Assembly began its first session. Humans and 100 other species, talking together, arguing together, building together. The day humans abandoned the Galactic Council was the day the universe changed forever. But it was only the beginning of the story. And humanity would be there for every chapter yet to come.